Today's daily number, $100 billion. That's right, $100 billion. Warren Buffett has reportedly made over $100 billion in his investment in Apple stock over the last 6 years. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get into everything, we're going to talk about the markets. Always got to do the markets. Russia update, along with Apple is the new Coke. And we're going to talk about Morris Day and the Time fighting with Prince from the grave. Sadly, Morris Day and the Time are having a bit of a dispute over some estate rights, but we'll get into that a little bit in just a second. All right. But as we always do, we always have to do our market rundown first things first. Before we get into anything else, I had to check out and see how the market's made out this lovely day. And it's been pretty interesting. So the S&P 500 closed at $4,363, down roughly about 0.5%. So the S&P right now is down year to date 8.45%. So came up a little bit from yesterday, but still here, still going to be in focus, still going to be an issue because Russia and Ukraine can't get it together. But we'll talk about that some more as well. Oil's up at $111, actually almost $112. $112. Oil was up right now. What do I have here? It's up 48% year to date. It's a lot of bread, right? Again, we're going to keep feeling the squeeze on our pocketbooks and our wallets because oil's going up, gas is going to keep going up. Congress actually proposed a ban on U.S. oil imports for the U.S., so a lot of that's starting to develop. A lot of things are still starting to develop with the Ukraine, so it's going to keep getting seedy. All right. Gold up today, a little under a point, a little under 1 percentage point, 1951. All right. Now, why do I keep saying oil when I'm talking about gold? Gold is up 6.63% year to date. So oil is one of those safe haven assets, tends to do well when the markets are crazy, when the world's crazy. So I'm expecting more people to seek haven in oil, expecting more people to seek haven in U.S. treasuries, things like that, because they're safe. People know they're not going to lose any money there. So you'll start to see money flows increase as people run over into gold. Wheat is up again today. I told you yesterday during our broadcast that wheat was up. It jumped up, but guess what? It jumped up again today, another 7% today, up 11.34 today, closing out at 11.34. And wheat is up year to date 47%. So as we think about the markets, as we think about what's going on in the world, we know inflation is still an issue. We know we saw Fed Chair Jerome Powell yesterday talk about they're going to raise interest rates 1/4 point, which is really nothing. But they recognize that they're a little late to the party. They're tardy for the party. And so they're going to start doing some other things to try to dampen inflation. But the horse has left the barn. It's too late. They are way, way behind, right? So as we go about doing our updates, going through the Russia-Ukraine thing, right? It's a lot of things still developing over in the Russia-Ukraine. A lot of things still sad. Again, yesterday's announcement or yesterday's broadcast, I talked about blacks in Ukraine and how many of them are starting to escape Ukraine, get to places like Poland, get to places like Romania, and a lot of them are starting to get safe. And the Ukraine did indeed announce that some of their policies were racist, right? So at least they're owning up to it, right? They did wrong. The policies on the ground were wrong, but at least the top recognizes it. Can't say that for a lot of other places where we're broadcasting from today, but at least they're doing something, right? But Russia is still deliberately targeting civilians in the Ukraine, which to me is crazy, all right? It seems like Russia has almost overestimated their power and underestimated Ukraine's forces because we're still seeing a lot of skirmishes in the street. Russia is like, there's some reports that they're running out of food. Things are really, really crazy, but I don't know. Some of the reports that I've read said Russia hasn't dominated any of the airspace, right? And that's kind of typical warfare or typical war military strategy. dominate the airspace so you can control the ground forces, or at least protect the ground forces. They have not done that yet. So it's still a bit sketchy over there, and they don't know why. Many of our folks don't know why. And like I just said, many of the Russian forces are running out of food. That's what some of the reports are saying. Some of the reports are saying that some of the Russian, what do they call them? Draftees, because Russia drafts their folks. They're even poking holes in some of their gas lines so they don't have to engage in a battle. Now, again, I am always skeptical about news sources. I'm not there. I'm not boots on the ground, nor do I want to be, right? But that's what's being reported. They're saying that some of the Russians are literally destroying their gas tanks so they don't have to move into battle in certain instances. So, again, I find it interesting. All right. There was supposedly a ceasefire on the table, but there is none now. But there was an agreement to basically evacuate civilians, because there's been a lot of reports, again, Russia's been targeting civilians. They targeted a hospital, a maternity ward. So a lot of stuff is happening. A lot of bad stuff is happening. All right. And as I said earlier, Congress is potentially weighing a ban on Russian oil imports. So in Congress, you have the House of Representatives and the Senate. Both of them are talking about doing this. Now, from the reports that I'm reading, the White House isn't so gung-ho on doing this, but I would think they would want to be. But I get it. There are some other parts of the U.S. economy that still uses Russian oil for certain things. Without Russian oil, it could be a little seedy. Now, the United States, along with many other developed nations, are talking about releasing some of their oil reserve because gas prices have gone so high. But they're talking about releasing, I know in the U.S., they're talking about releasing another 60 million barrels. What many people don't realize is that worldwide global consumption of oil daily is about 90 million barrels, between 90 million and 100 million barrels daily. 60 billion barrels isn't going to do anything in the U.S. So they have these strategic reserves for times of need, like Katrina or massive hurricanes, massive earthquakes, things like that, that make sure there's always oil around so things won't stop moving. But I don't know how safe it is or how prudent it is to release the oil only for it to be absorbed and not really have much of an impact on the price of gasoline or the price of oil. So I think that's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. All right. Now, I gotta bring this up. So everybody's doing a ban on Russia, like literally everybody. But for some reason, cats feel like they had to be part of the party. I don't know why. I think it's kind of weird, but there is a whole, hold on, I have to find this. There's a whole official thing. They announced it on Twitter. Let me pull this up real quick, because I don't want y'all to say I'm making this up. The board of FIFA feels it cannot just witness these atrocities and do nothing. Very interesting. So the FIFA, and I'm going to come to you with the name of FIFA, executive board is shocked and horrified that the army of Russian Federation invaded the Republic of Ukraine and started a war. Now, I got to show you this. So this is the International Cat Federation. So that's who FIFA is. The International Cat Federation bans Russian cats from competitions, as if anybody really cares. But I guess, you know what they say, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I guess FIFA said, well, this is a great way to get our name out there, to get our name interjected in the media. But it only really matters for, I'm going to go back to this one. It only really matters for cats that were bred in Russia. Maybe, all right, so it says no cat bred in Russia may be imported and registered in any FIFA pedigree book outside Russia, regardless of which organization. No cat belonging to the exhibitors living in Russia may be entered at any FIFA show outside Russia, regardless of which organization these exhibitors hold their membership in. I mean, I gotta wonder, like, who in the world thought it was important for cats to be banned in terms of competition as it relates to Ukraine, Russia? But again, I guess people are going to seize on a good opportunity. Now, at the top of the show, I talked about the number of the day being $100 billion. So not Russian. I got Russia on the mind, y'all. Warren Buffett has reportedly made over $100 billion from his investment from Apple over the last 6 years. So Warren, the Oracle, has been doing a damn thing. And it's funny, a lot of people have kind of counted Warren out, but Warren is still swinging. Warren is still making money. So CNBC reported for Warren Buffett, Apple is his new Coca-Cola, as the investing icon reaps $100 billion in 6 years. Got to give it up. Right. So you can't knock that. And then as I go through the article, right, it says Berkshire Hathaway began buying Apple stock in 2016 and amassed a 5% ownership of the iShare maker by mid-2018 with a cost of $36 billion. So they initially spent about $36 billion. As the tech giant shares prices skyrocketed, the value of Buffett's bet has ballooned to more than $160 billion, bringing his return well over $100 billion on paper in just 6 years. Can anybody calculate the rate of return that is? But what's really interesting, right? Because again, a lot of people talk trash about Buffett. They talk trash about Buffett when the dot-com bubble came. They said he was washed up because he wasn't investing in tech. Many people said the same thing because he's not really gung-ho on crypto and the like. But when you look at it, he brought a Coca-Cola somewhere between 5 and 10. He brought Apple somewhere around $20. Both went to the moon, right? And so I know a lot of people the focus these days are to talk about day trading, options, all the sexy stuff. But what Warren Buffett just did is what I talk about often in dollar cost averaging, right? He put some money in, and then he put some more money in later, and then put some more money in later on, right? Real simplified version of it. Doesn't have to be sexy. Doesn't have to be glorified. Pick good companies, wait on them, and they usually will deliver unless something really strange happens. It doesn't have to be day trading. It doesn't have to be picking the hot stock. It doesn't have to be any of that. It's about picking a good company that what Warren Buffett would say has an economic moat around it. Basically, it's differentiated. It's got good cash flows. It's got good cash reserves, and it's able to make an impact on the market. Like there's clear demand. And you see that with Apple products. You still see that with Coca-Cola products. So Warren Buffett loves to invest in good brands for the most part. So that is undeniable. Now, there's another story today that's kind of sad. It's kind of sad in my opinion. I'm a big fan. But Prince Estate responds to Morris Day post about Tom name dispute. So let me back up. Morris Day went to Twitter and he said that he no longer can use Morris Day in the time. And so this is what the legend said here. I've given 40 years of my life building up a name and legacy that Prince and I came up with. A name that while he was alive had no problem with me using. I literally put my blood, sweat, and tears into bringing value to that name. In fact, he booked me on several tours and many jam-packed nights at Paisley Park under the name Morris Day and the Time. Not once, ever, saying to me that I couldn't use that name configuration. However, now that Prince is no longer with us, suddenly the people who control his multi-million-dollar estate want to rewrite history by taking my name away from me, thus impacting how I feed my family. So as of now, per the Prince estate, I can no longer use Morris Day and the Time in any capacity. That's actually really sad. That's really sad. Now, the Prince estate did reply back, and going back and forth, they said it was a misunderstanding. But Morris Day, I'm trying to find it here, what their reply was. Let me see. Oh, and he shared it on Instagram, not on Twitter. But the estate is basically saying that they could have flushed it out, but you know how some of these legal things go, that the lawyers are being a little bit aggressive. The artist or said person that is being affected is pushing back, and so there's an issue. But what I did was, because I definitely want to go a little bit deeper into this conversation, because estates are something we all should be thinking about, right? Because at some point and sometime we're all going to be out of here, and we all leave a legacy, whether good or bad. And part of that legacy is, what does your estate look like? So I already reached out to my homegirl, Courtney, the Ivy Investor, who is a taxation attorney and estate attorney. And we're going to break down this situation a little bit deeper, because I know at one point Prince did own the name. So ownership is very important in life while you're living and in death, right? So you literally can control your assets in death when done properly. Now, I don't want y'all to get excited. I know a lot of y'all want to talk about having a trust, having an estate. Those things typically are for more sophisticated investors, those who have accumulated some assets, not for those who are struggling paycheck to paycheck. And that is no shade, but I want y'all to keep in mind that there's levels to these things, right? There's levels to these things. So don't just go up an arm and run out and go get you a trust, because I see people do that all the time because they think there's some kind of tax advantage to them. And what they do is they put themselves further in debt, and it's crazy. All right, but so that's today's show, right? We talked about the market rundown, as we always do. The Ukraine-Russia update. Apple is the new Coke, and Morris Day and the Times battle with the Prince estate. All right, so if you got value from this, if you enjoyed it, like it, comment, share, subscribe. Do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Instagram channel, the Twitter channel. You could all find them under The Finance Rebel. Until the next time, I will see you all later. Have a great night. Bye-bye.